Shaheen. Okay, okay. All right. Gotcha, man. I mean, just to start, right? We got 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So, who is Mr. Shaheen? How do you get started in business? And where you're at now?
Yeah, so I mean, how I got started in business. I mean, so I was born and raised in England, and my family moved to the U.S. when I was 7 years old. And growing up as a kid, I always used to work on the farm. My grandparents had a cow farm, and so I was always busy working, right? Whether it was mucking out the neighbors' horse stalls or working on my grandparents' farm, something I was always busy. And when we moved to the States, I played sports and stuff like that, but I had a bum leg, which kind of stopped, like, prevented me from playing sports all the time, like I would if I could. But I loved making money. So when we moved to Minnesota, my parents got this house that that this old couple, they were retiring and moving to Florida, and they didn't
Uh-huh.
want to take any of their stuff. They're like, "Look, we'll sell you the house, but you got to keep all of our stuff." And it was all like old. They'd been in this house for like 50 years, 60 years, and so it was all old stuff. And so my parents were like, "Okay, cool," and I'm like, "Yeah, don't throw the stup away. I'll do yard sales every single weekend until it's all gone." And so that was kind of my first entrepreneurial, I guess, adventure, right? So within a few months, we sold all that stuff, furniture, lamps, antiques. I mean, you name it. I probably could have got a lot more for some of that stuff now that I think about it. But it was fun. Once everything was gone, I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna do to make money now? Right? My parents were pretty well off. I mean, they were like middle class, but not like, they weren't super wealthy, but they weren't poor, right? But they didn't believe in, buying Abercrombie and Nike and, the name brand stuff. We got the cheaper clothes. And me having a British accent when I was a kid, like, the kids used to make fun of me. So I'm like, I want nice clothes. I want to kind of fit in more, right? So the only way I was able to do that is if I bought the nicer clothes myself. So I'm like, man, I need to make money. There's nothing left to sell. I almost sold my mom's vacuum cleaner, and I'm like, okay, I we can't be selling all my parents' stuff. So I decided at that time, me, my sister, my brother, and some neighborhood kids, we started a landscaping company. So we
Oh,
cut grass in the spring and the summer. We raked leaves. We plowed snow. I don't know if you know about Minnesota, but it snows a lot
yeah.
in the wintertime, man. Like, I remember one weekend it snowed 2.5 feet. So at that age, 7, 8, 9 years old, we were banging it out, man. We weren't the kind of kids that went to the neighbor and said, "Hey, we want $5 to cut your grass." No, it was, "How much do you guys pay now to get your grass cut?"
Yeah.
Right? If they were like, "Well, we pay about $50," okay, we'll do it for 45. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, we weren't just trying to nickel and dime and make pennies because there was like 4 or 5 of us. We knew if we didn't charge at least $40, we're only gonna make a couple dollars a piece. Um, so we got jobs done quickly. We started hiring more people. We started outsourcing in different neighborhoods, getting other kids to start doing the same thing and taking a piece of their of their profits. And it was crazy now that I think about it. Like, back then, you don't really think much about it. You're like, I'm doing this job to make some money, right? You don't really think of the business aspect of it.
Yeah.
And my dad taught me about taxes. He would take a chunk of our money every week and put it aside,
It was
in
the
our college
IRS.
fund or whatever. He was the IRS. And yeah, so, like, from there, I tried a lot of different businesses over the years. I ended up dropping out of college to manage a bunch of Verizon stores at the time. And I didn't, like, there was no way for me to move up
So you
at
drop
that
out of
time.
college at what age?
At 20 years old, 20,
20.
yeah, 20 years old, I dropped out of college. Um, because I could make more money. Like, I knew if I were to get a degree and then get a job, like, I wasn't gonna be happy. Like, I knew I wanted to be a business owner, an entrepreneur. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to make real money. I didn't want to make 100 grand a year, 200 grand a year, or whatever. You know what I mean? If you get a job, like, the best you're gonna get, unless you become like the CEO of a major company, you're not going to be a millionaire. It's just not going to happen. So I decided to drop out. I started managing all the Verizon stores in the area. And after a while, I realized that I had no way to move up. Like the only person above me was the owner, right?
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? In the area that I lived in, it was actually it's called Ocean City, Maryland, and it's like a small town in the wintertime, and in the summertime there's a million people there, right? It's like a destination spot. So at the time there was no AT&T stores. So I'm like, you know what? Instead of just being a competitor, why don't I just bring the only AT&T store to this area? So I moved up to DC. At that time, my brother was going to college in College Park in Maryland, and I helped him start a scooter company, and he blew that thing into like it was crazy. So he like ran it out of my house at the beach in the early days, and then eventually he ended up opening like a couple of stores. He got a partner. I mean, he
So,
grew
so
it into like a
how do you
multi.
guys come up with the scooter idea? How did
Dude,
that?
so it was completely by accident. So my brother and his friend moved into my beach house after their freshman year in college.
Mhm,
And they started working for me at the Verizon stores.
mhm.
And they're like, man, like beach traffic sucks. It takes me forever. I had them in the stores that were kind of far on the other side of town. So they're like, man, I want to get a scooter to be able to get to work faster, and not mess with this beach traffic. Plus, it was like the cool thing to do. You know, the locals, they drove scooters and, it's
Yeah.
like the beach vibe, right? And so we went to the stores and they were like $3,000 a piece, $4,000 a piece. And so they started looking online and they found them for like $700, but you had to put them together yourself,
Mm,
right? And they're like, we could figure that out. So they ended up buying two each. They're like, yo, if we buy two, then we sell the other one, it pays for our scooter. So we're not really coming out of pocket. So that's exactly what they did. They put them together and within a few hours, and they sold the other one. They sold it for like $3,000 within minutes of putting it on Craigslist at the time, right? There was no Facebook Marketplace. They put it on Craigslist, and boom, people started calling. They had it sold within minutes.
mm,
So what did they do? They bought a couple more and a couple more and a couple more.
mhm.
Eventually, they quit Verizon, obviously, and they started slinging these scooters.
Uh-huh.
Eventually, one day, a kid fell off his scooter, got hurt. The lady's like, "Oh, you guys don't have a business license. What are you doing? Like, you can't be doing this." So that day, they went to City Hall. They got a business license. They got their insurance, and officially, the business was born. And it all happened by accident. It was crazy. So my brother's running this company while they went back to school, different colleges, and
Mm.
they're both running this business in their area. And then eventually each of them opened a store in their areas, and they just kept growing this thing. I mean, they've sold scooters to celebrities, to Biden's wife, to big politicians, to, I mean, you name it.
Wow.
Because they just did good business, right? They weren't ripping people off. They weren't selling junk. They ended up starting to do a service and everything. They could work on motorcycles. They ended up doing ATVs,
What's the
and
name of
so
the
yeah, it was it,
scooter?
it
What's
was
the,
so back then it was called like college scooters. Now it's called, I think, Shore Cycles. My brother ended up selling his side of the business. He decided to go back to school, get his MBA, and now he's going to be working in the finance department for Chewy. So he got a really big corporate job. He's got kids. He got tired of the business grind. But that's not me. I could never do that. I could never work for somebody. It's going to be tough for him, but
hmm.
I think he'll be able to do it. Being able to just work the 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, have benefits, have vacation time. Him and his wife make pretty good money. They have a business on the side as well. So they'll be all right. But
Yeah.
that wasn't my path. So I I decided to open up a mobile AT&T store just to see how it took in that area because there was no AT&T, right? At that time, they were the only ones with the iPhone. So I started going business to business, switching people's corporate plan over from Verizon to AT&T, and that was going really well. Now I was about to open up a store, and this guy approaches me to sell me credit card processing.
Mm,
And so I get talking to him like, "What kind of money are you making doing this?" Like, I'm going to businesses. Maybe I just add this as another product to sell these businesses. And he gets telling me, I'm like, "Man, that's pretty good money." And so I end up talking to his boss, and now I start selling credit card processing. Well, it got to a point where I was making so much more money on the credit card processing side of thing, the phone thing didn't even make sense to focus on anymore.
mm.
So canceled the dream of opening the AT&T stores. It wasn't going to make me rich anyway. So I decided to go down this path. I started traveling the country
How old
selling
were
credit
you?
card processing. I
How
was
old were
21 years old. 21 years old, traveled the country. I was in a different city every weekend. Sometimes I would hit a couple different cities in the same week. I would do like a 2 week trip down to Florida, spend the weekend in Miami, do another 2 week trip back, hitting different cities on the way down and on the way back. And it was a
Was
lot of
that the
fun. But
schedule or was it that
yeah,
something?
so we had a call center that set appointments. So I'd let them know, hey, I'm going to be in this city these days, this city these days, and they would set me appointments the day before in each of those cities. So I'd run appointments and I'd cold call onto the businesses on each side and get referrals and do whatever I could in those areas because I was only there for a couple of days. So
This,
I had to get as much as I could.
yeah, and this is the a job that's full commission or is it a job with a
Yeah,
bonus?
100%. Yeah, 100%
Huh.
commission. No salary. I mean, the commissions were great, especially for somebody like me. That's,
Yeah.
I'm not going back to the hotel until I've gotten a couple of deals. You know what I mean? Like, uh,
Start,
nothing's gonna stop me.
start selling. That's good.
Exactly.
I think that's a good point. So let's say you're 21 years old, you're kind of figuring things out, and most of the time people will go like, let's say you go to an interview, they give you an offer, and most of the time parents are like, okay, well, what are the benefits, right? That's the first thing they ask.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
did you explain that to your parents?
My parents thought I was crazy. My
Oh,
parents thought I was crazy. They are only just now starting to realize that I made the right decisions. I'm 34 years old now. I've been on 100% commission since I was 18.
cool.
When I was managing those Verizon stores, zero salary, zero hourly, no benefits, 100% commission. I've always been on 100% commission. And my parents are like, "You're crazy. You need something guaranteed. You need health benefits, and you need this, that, and I'm like, that's not for me. I don't need that. I can pay for that stuff myself. I got a job that I can make whatever I want to make. Right?
Hmm.
They never understood it. Right? My dad's always kind of had an entrepreneur mindset. Like he's been in business development and for big companies like Cargill and Purdue Chicken. I mean, he's done some big things, but like he had kids at a young age. He got married at a young age, so he didn't want to ever take the risk to start a business because he had kids to feed. He had 3 kids by the time he was probably 26, 27. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So he never took that risk. I didn't have that problem. I was able to take that risk, right?
Yeah.
Um, so from there, my parents are like, don't drop out of college. You'll never amount to nothing. You'll never be able to make good money. Ever since I was a little kid, I'm always like, I'm going to be a businessman. I'm going to be rich, right? A little kid, like 4 or 5 years old. I'm
Hmm.
telling this to my parents. And so when I dropped out of college, it was, what are you doing? You're ruining your life. Like, what are you thinking? Like, um, not that they didn't, love and support me. And I think they were just kind of scared that, because it wasn't for them, right? Like it's not for everybody, right? There's a reason why there's a 1%, right?
Yeah.
The top 1%, because not everybody's built that way.
Uh,
Um, and so being on 100% commission, you're basically your own boss, right? Like you make what you make.
yeah.
You have expenses. You got to pay for your own gas and your food and your hotels and all this stuff. Like you got to make enough to cover that and put some money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Um, so that's where I really learned the grind, like the
Hmm.
hustle. Like nonstop, work hard, play hard. 21 years old, writing my own paychecks essentially. I had weeks where I made 10, 20 grand. I had weeks where I only made $100 or
Hmm.
nothing. You know what I mean? Like it's just the way it is sometimes, right? And But the traveling got old. After about a year and a half of traveling, I mean, I was probably in that year and a half, I was probably only home maybe 3 or 4 weekends.
Oof.
Yeah. So it was hard to have a relationship with my parents. I couldn't have a girlfriend, like my friends. Like I couldn't really have a relationship, and I kind of missed that. So I decided to call up corporate. I said, look, man, I can teach anybody how to sell this stuff. I'm gonna come out and be a sales manager. So I started recruiting. It was funny. So I was in um Missouri. No, Iowa. I was in Iowa. I was supposed to finish another 2-week trip back to Maryland.
Mhm.
Well, I hadn't sold any deals in 5 days. And when you don't sell any deals for 5 days, they take you off the board and they don't set any more appointments. And the rule is you got to drive home from wherever you are.
Wow.
So I door knocked. I was trying to close any deal I possibly could. And it got to like 9 to 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, man, I better get driving. So I start driving home. I end up falling asleep at the wheel in West Virginia.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was scary, but I pulled off the road. I ended, my car wasn't, damaged or anything, but I kind of like nodded out. I'm like, oh shit, I better pull off and get a hotel. So I get a hotel, and the next morning I start posting on I think it was Facebook at the time. It might have even been MySpace. Now hiring sales reps, 100% commission, write your own paychecks. You can make 5, 10, 15, $25,000 a month, whatever. Um, so by the time I got back to Maryland later on that day, I had 3 or 4 people that were interested, ready to go. So I called the boss and said, hey, what is it going to take for me to be a sales manager? And he's like, look, you got to come out to the office at least half of the month. So I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we're based in Salt Lake. You stay in Salt Lake for 2 weeks. You're home 2 weeks. So, okay, I can do that. So I started traveling back and forth to Salt Lake. 2 weeks out of the month home, 2 weeks there. Managed a team of 10 to 15 sales reps that were traveling the country, selling credit card processing. My job was essentially um, we'd do a sales call in the morning, hype them up, get them rocking and rolling, get on the phone with a merchant if they needed help closing, make sure the paperwork's good, and that was about it. But that got old too, man. I did that for 4 years,
Wow.
and there was no other way around it.
But you did one for 1 year and a half, and then you did the other one for 4 years. So what was the difference?
So, I mean, when I was traveling for a year and a half, I was literally nonstop traveling myself, going from city to city, constantly gone. Now, when I was in Salt Lake as a sales manager, I was only there for 2 weeks. So I
Hmm.
would just fly there. I'm in Salt Lake for 2 weeks, had an apartment there, had the office there, and then I was home for 2 weeks, and then just back and forth. It was so much easier, right? I could have relationships because I was home every 2 weeks, right?
Mm.
For 2 weeks at a time. So, but eventually that got old too. When you're gone half the month every month, and the crazy thing is, I sold better when I was at home in the
Mm.
comfort of my own home, looking out onto the beach. Like I sold better. I don't know why they needed me to come to the. It was just a rule that they had, right? So eventually I decide, I'm going to look for another company, see if I can get out of this traveling thing. So I get in touch with another company, similar product. And they're like, well, our office is in LA. After a few months, once we know you got the hang of things, you can stay home, no problem. I'm like, LA, cool, man. I love LA. So they got me an apartment in the finance district downtown LA. We had the dope office. It was cool living. I would spend my weekends in Long Beach or on the boardwalk in Venice Beach. One of my buddies lived right on the boardwalk. It was fun. And I would only have to go there for a week at a time. So I was there 1 week a month.
Okay.
Did that for a while, and eventually decided, man, like this isn't for me. The product they were selling was not, it wasn't helping people. They were like, oh, we're going to save. They were claiming to the clients that they were going to save them a bunch of money. And they ended up paying the same as what they were paying before. So I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm out. So funny thing is, I start applying for jobs. My
Mm,
parents got in my head. They're like, get something with a salary. You can stay home. So I get a job at Solar Solar City, I think it was called.
you're 26 years old by this time?
20. What am I now? Yeah, probably 26.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'm following.
So I get a job at Solar City, and I was
Before you
freaking
move,
miserable.
before you move there, because we're like at 26 now. When you're 21 and you take your first commission job, and all your friends are taking jobs that are salary, they have all benefits. What was your thought process? What were you thinking? Like, were you
Well, dude,
thinking?
I was making way more money than anybody in my
But
town.
before
Like,
though, before you actually made your first commission, you actually had
I
to
mean,
ask.
dude, I had no, there was no doubt. Like, I had been on, the first commission only job I took was when I was 17, when I first moved to Maryland.
Uh-huh.
Verizon store, it was 100% commission.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. And the first week I made $1,000. I'm like, I was hooked, bro. I was hooked right then and there.
Wow. Okay.
There was no like, there was no hesitation.
So at
Like I
17
knew
years
I had,
old, you try it out.
yeah,
You make $1,000 in a week. You're like, okay,
yep,
I'm all in.
yeah, I'm hooked. I'm like, yo, and then it just kept getting better. Like I had
Yeah.
good weeks and bad weeks, but like I had one deal I made 10 grand at the age of 20 years old. Like
Yeah.
nobody I knew has ever seen 10 grand in their account, let alone make that in one deal. You know what I mean? Um so yeah, there was none of that. Like I wasn't worried. Like, it was really just my parents, right? Like
Gotcha.
they were kind of in my head. And so when I decided to be done with the traveling, I decided to apply at Solar City. Man, hated it. I was like, you know what? Forget this. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take some time off. This was like the beginning of summer. And in a summertown, man, you're at the beach. I'm like, you know what? I haven't taken time off in God knows how many years, right? Like I would take the occasional vacation every couple of years. But I was just grinding like from the age of 7. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take 3 months off of work and I'm gonna figure out what I want to do, right?
Mm.
What I want to do next. What is gonna be the next thing for Shaheen? A business? Is it gonna be a job? I don't know.
I lost you. The volume, your microphone.
Um,
There you go. You're back.
so in between that time, can you hear me? Okay,
It's laggy. Yeah, you're back.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I take this time off, and just so I didn't, I was terrified that I was going to turn into a lazy piece of garbage. Right. So I was
Uh-huh.
like, you know what? I got to do something. I can't just do nothing for 3 months. So a couple of my buddies had construction companies. I'm like, dude, put me to work. Just, a few hours a day, put me to work. So I learned how to build decks and put up door frames. And I'd never done anything construction in my life. I'd done some farm work, but nothing like this.
Yeah.
And so, I would work a couple hours in the morning, shirt off, in my board shorts, swinging a hammer. Like it was great, bullshitting with the guys. And then I'd go play cornhole at the bar for a little bit. I'd go, go swimming, go surfing, go chill on the beach. Um, so I did that for a couple months, and I was like, man, I got to stay a little bit busier. It's time to start getting serious soon. So I started driving Uber, about an hour a day as well. And so it started to get closer to the end of summer. I'm like, man, I got to do something. And I see this ad for this company that was, they were selling, they were brokering boats. It was called Pop Yachts.
Mhm.
Pop Yachts, they would charge people 10% to sell their boat. They're the biggest boat broker in the world. And they were looking for somebody locally in Ocean City, Maryland, to be their guy, to take the picture for the listings, like a real estate broker for boats, right? Take the pictures for the listing, put the listings up, show people the boats when they want to see them, yada, yada, yada. So I started doing that. I sold, a few boats, and the commissions were so garbage compared to what they were telling us. They were horrible. Like on this, I sold a boat for 100 grand, which was about an average size boat, and I made $250.
Wow.
They were making 10 grand, and I got $250. I'm like,
How do
forget
you
this,
feel when that happened?
dude. I said, forget it, bro. I know everybody in this town. I know everybody in this town. I'll sell the boats.
Mm,
Every single person I showed a boat to or took the pictures of the boat for, I had some kind of connection with. Whether it is I knew their son, I knew their neighbor, I knew their boss, I knew somebody. We had some kind of connection. So what I start doing, I start advertising. If you want to sell
mm,
anything, boat, car, house, building, whatever, we'll write up a marketing agreement, right? Because you can't sell houses without a real estate license. I'm going to market your product, and if I bring you a buyer, you pay me a 10% commission. Sometimes I'd do 5% commission. Sometimes I'd say, tell me your minimum price, and whatever I sell over that, I keep.
mm.
And I started killing it. Boom, boom, boom. 10 grand here, 5 grand there, 20
What was your
grand there.
first
Boom,
sale?
boom, boom. My first sale was a boat for my friend's dad.
Oh,
It was $80,000. I made 8 grand.
okay.
Right? He wanted 72,000 minimum. I sold it for 80. Boom, 8K. He
How
was
fast
happy. I was happy. The buyer was happy. It was
how
great.
fast were you able to sell it from the moment you actually got it in?
Couple weeks.
Couple weeks. Okay.
Yeah, I was posting on Craigslist, on Facebook, um, Snapchat, anything online. It really wasn't hard. It really was not hard at all. And those guys paid me $250 for $100,000 boat.
Yeah.
So that led into something bigger, and this was about to be my biggest commission check ever. So this guy's trying to sell a building on a boardwalk for 4.6 million.
Mhm.
He's like, you get 5 million for it, I'll give you 400K.
Mm.
I got a buyer for 5 million. They bought it. They never paid me my commission. So the story goes, that guy didn't buy it, but like his partner bought it or something. They just weaseled their way out of paying me the commission. I didn't really have a leg to stand on because it was just a marketing agreement. I wasn't a realtor, so technically, I couldn't sell the building, which I really didn't sell it, but I got them the buyer. So I was pretty pissed at that point. I met somebody else in the Baltimore area that had a bunch of houses. So what he was doing, he was buying crappy houses in the hood,
Mhm.
making them livable, and then renting them out, and then selling them. So he would get a tenant in there with a 1-year lease and then sell it. So like buying a business, right? He would buy it for 20K. He'd get an $800 a month tenant in there after putting 10 grand in, and then sell it for 40, 50K.
Yeah.
Right. So he's making 10, 20K a property.
Mhm.
So he's like, man, I got a ton of houses. I'm trying to move. I start coming up to Baltimore to show these houses and sell them. And it just got to a point where I was going back and forth so much. I was staying in my little brother's and his wife's basement. They were pregnant, about to have a kid. And so I decided to try and get a place up in Baltimore because I was selling so much more stuff in Baltimore. And so I post something on Facebook, and this girl is like, "Hey, me and my baby's father, we broke up. I got a spare bedroom. Do you want to rent it?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." Long story short, before I even moved in to this spare bedroom, I went over for dinner one night. We hooked up, and now we're dating. I fall in
Wow.
love with this girl, man. I fall in love with this girl. She has a daughter. I'm raising her like my own. And fast forward, I'm like, I'm selling houses and cars and boats and food trucks. I started brokering food trucks for this guy. I started selling fidget spinners. Fidget spinners had just came out. You remember those fidget spinners, those things that spin that kids love?
The
They're
the
like you hold them in your hand and it spins.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Dude, so those had just come out. I had a hookup that got them
The
to me for
ones
2 cents.
the
Yeah,
ones
bro.
with the lights and stuff too.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, they were selling for 20 to $50. I was getting them for 2 cents.
Wow.
2 cents. I started selling them. Everybody made fun of me. Oh, the fidget spinner guy, the fidget spinner guy. I'm like, look at this pile of cash, buddy. I wouldn't be laughing. I started hiring people to go to flea markets. Like, look, I'll give you 50% of the product, sell as many as you
Wow.
can. I started pushing it like crazy. And my girl, because everybody kind of made fun of it, she's like, she felt some type of way about it. She's like, people are laughing at you, but I'm like I'm making all this money. Like, don't listen to that noise. Who cares? It's a fidget spinner, but like, I'm getting them for 2 cents and I'm selling them for $10 in bulk.
Yeah.
I'm selling 100 of them at $10 a pop. Like, anyway, so she's like, we're trying to start a family. We're talking about getting married and having a kid together, and we decided I need something more concrete because brokering things randomly, it's up and down. I mean, you
Yeah.
just never know. Some weeks could be great, some weeks could be bad, and so I decided to start because I'd had so many years going from business to business and seeing so many different businesses, what they do right, what they do wrong. I decided to start a business that is helping businesses get open, right? So creating their name, getting their LLC, building a website, getting their business open, right? And so my first client is this guy that wants me to create a credit card processing company. So this
Mm,
guy calls me. He's like, "Hey, I see you create businesses. We want to start a credit card processing company. Do you know anything about the credit card processing industry?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro. That's literally I did it for 7, 8 years."
okay.
And so I create this company. I didn't want to run it. I didn't want to get back into the credit card processing industry at the time. I create this company. Um, this was a Friday. I was supposed to go pick up a check for 35 grand on Monday. That was the cost of building this company for them. It only took me a week to do.
Oh,
So it's pretty good, right? So Friday, I get a text from my girl while I'm at home taking care of her daughter, mind you. I don't know if I love you anymore, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I call her mother, say, hey, come pick up your granddaughter. I gotta get out of here. I move out. I go live in my little brother's basement. I find out a few days later she'd been seeing somebody else. I was heartbroken, devastated. This was the end of the world for me, right? Like, this girl was like my daughter, Like,
yeah.
I was more upset about the kid than I was about the girl, honestly. Like, it
You
really
were
hurt me.
you were 28 at this time, 28.
Yeah, 28, a lot of my friends had already been getting married and having kids, and like I finally had that, and like it's something I'd always wanted.
Yeah.
And I was devastated, dude. Like I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Suicidal thoughts. I mean, you name it, bro. Like, it was bad. I'd never gone through anything like that, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy.
Wow.
Now that I look back on it, I'm like, man, that was kind of pussy of you. Like, there's so many people going through such worse stuff,
Yeah. I
but
mean, but when
it
you're in
is
the
what it is. It
moment,
was,
when you're in the
yeah,
moment,
in the
you're in the moment.
moment, it was tough, man. But
Yeah.
so these guys that I built that company for had been blowing me up for 2 weeks. I was in my brother's dark basement for 2 weeks, bro. It was bad. So one day I'm on Facebook, I'm scrolling, and this is why I tell you I love Grant Cardone, and I'll always do business with him. He saved my life that day. I'm scrolling on Facebook, wanting the world to end, bro. And I get to this video where he starts talking about how we are in control of how we react to things, right? Bad things are going to happen. Things are going to get in your way, but it's how we deal with that that really sets us apart,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of it, he said, don't be a little bitch. And that minute, I got out of bed. I looked myself in the mirror. I'm like, dude, this is not you. This is not who you are. Like, what are you doing? Get your shit together. Get out of bed. I decided I'd get showered for the first time in days, put on a suit, go meet these guys. And I knew I had to stay busy. If I was going to ever get this girl out of my head and be able to move on, I had to stay busy. So it was time to grind. My only opportunity or the best option for me to grind was to run this company. So I go to their office and said, hey, do you guys have anybody that's going to run this company? They're like, no. They hand me the check. I was like, hold on. They're like, unfortunately, our current business we have an opportunity to really scale it. And this is what we know. So we're not going to be able to do anything with this credit card processing company. We're still going to pay you, but it's going to be shelved. I say, you know what? It's not going to be shelved. I'm going to run it. I just need some of your expertise. These guys were great in building call centers, which I had never had experience with. So I said, I need some of your expertise and, and some of your guidance, but I'm going to run this company. I'd like to carve out a piece of your office if you don't mind. And I'll get started. They agreed. So I said,
So you
keep
start as an
35.
operator pretty much of this
Yeah.
company. You helped
Yeah.
open.
Yep. So from the start, I was 60% owner of the company. And they owned 40%. The idea was they were going to help me. They ended up not having time. So I ended up having to figure out everything on my own. Within about a month, we got open with 8 sales reps in the office, and we started calling businesses to sell them credit card processing. Well, at the time, we didn't have a reputation, right? We weren't on the Better Business Bureau yet. We had a mediocre website. We had no testimonials, no reviews. Nobody wanted to talk to us. Even if we would get close to a sale, they would look us up online. They're like, dude, we don't even see you anywhere. Like, I'm not doing business with you. So we decided to lead with a different product. The idea was to lead with credit card processing and sell and sell lending and insurance and whatever, sell a bunch of products to help businesses grow and save money, right? We wanted to be a total business solutions company. So credit card processing didn't work. The first month, we didn't sell a single deal. I'm like, what have I done? I should have taken the 35 grand. What am I gonna do? Like, this is not good. So I decide, you know what? Every business needs money, and they'll take it from anybody who can get them approved. So I decided to learn lending in 24 hours. I spent actually 48 hours, Saturday, Sunday, learning about business lending, getting connected with some brokers, some lenders. And by Monday, we started selling lending as our lead product. So the company we got
lending, and that's your lead product now.
Right. So we get connected with the largest broker at the time, and he's like, do you have a script? I say, yeah. I sent him over the script. It was a pretty long script, asked a lot of questions to really figure out how we're going to help this business with this money, right? Not just, hey, how much do you process? How much do you do a month in revenue? What's your credit score? And how long you've been in business? And he's like, this script is too long. It won't work. In this industry, you'd be lucky to have a 10% closing ratio. With this script, you're not going to close anything. So he sends me a script, very basic: revenue, credit score, time in business. Send the merchant an app to fill out themselves, and tell them to send you their bank statements. I'm like, that ain't gonna work. I can't afford to have a 10% closing ratio. My marketing strategy was direct mail. Direct mail is expensive. I can't afford. If we have a 10% closing ratio, we're screwed. So I decided to lead with our script. Within 2 weeks, we're closing at a 50% closing ratio in an industry that has an average of a 10% closing ratio. Why? This is just from things that I've learned from Grant over the years and how to sell. We asked more questions. We find out their pain points, what they're trying to do, their goals, what they're going to do with the money, what that's going to bring to their bottom line, how it's going to help them, and have more of a conversation with them. And on top of that, we were filling out the application for the merchant. So we got an app on every single merchant, right? We were doing the app for them. So it took us a little longer with each client, but we got it done. We got the deals. Pretty quickly, we started renewing those loans, right? After about 6-8 months, every single client kept coming back to us for more money. And we just grew like crazy. Within the first year, I decided to buy out the partners because they wanted to start a credit card processing company. They had literally had nothing to do with the business. So I bought them out. They ended up moving out of this 5,000 square foot office into a bigger office. Now I had this 5,000 square foot office to build out.
How much did they buy it for? Like how much?
So they were leasing it for $5,000 a month.
Okay, but you said you bought the rest of the company?
Yeah, I bought them out. Yeah, so we were profitable after the first month. So they just had me pay them back the $40,000 that they invested.
Okay. So 40 grand and
So,
they give you pretty much the
yep,
40% that was.
yep, exactly. So now the business was 100% mine. I took over their office. The idea was to grow to a 150-person call center. Um, so I was having a hard time getting people to show up. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't we go remote? When I was selling credit card processing, I did really well when I worked from home. I know how to do it. I know what works, what doesn't work. Let me try that. So that's what we did.
Hmm.
We got rid of the office, the expense, and started working from home.
But
Now the
the
sales,
lending, the lending didn't make enough money to actually like pay for the rent and like affordable
it
stuff.
did, but it did, but I could I was using a 10% of the office. What was the point?
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Like I couldn't even get past 10 sales reps. How was I going to get to 150 sales reps?
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Especially in this area, like it's not people just don't want to work, and they don't want to work for 100% commission. I couldn't afford to pay a ton of people salary, so at the time we decided, in the beginning we were doing salary plus commission, but when it got to a point of me writing $12,000 paychecks for the week, they would only get 7, and I'm like, this is crazy, we got to stop this. How do we do that? We turned it over to 1099,
Mm.
right? We stopped doing W-2 with a salary, and we went to 100% commission. We increased the commissions and got rid of the salary. So the reps were making more money. They were putting more in their pocket, and they could write off different things like their rent, their car, different things they were using for business. So they paid less in taxes as well. So the reps I had at the time that were used to working from the office, they didn't really work out. They needed to be in the office. So I rebuilt the sales team, found a bunch of heavy hitters to work from home. I would fly them out to Maryland. I had a house on the water with 4 or 5 bedrooms, so I'd put them up. We'd work and we'd go out at night and go to dinner, and it was a good time. So and then I'd fly them home to Arizona or Florida or wherever they lived. And then they would work from home. So I was managing these sales reps. We're killing it in lending. And, the idea was to eventually, to just build a reputation from lending and then get back to credit card processing, because that's where the real money is, right? With lending, it's a one shot commission. With
Okay.
processing, it's a monthly residual,
Mm.
right? The money's in the residuals. Plus, you can sell the book of business for X amount of dollars, at any point in time. So it has real value. Where a lending broker doesn't really have real value. It's not something you can really sell in the future, right? Because once you stop selling, there's no value there, right? We don't own any property. There's no equipment. There's no, um, so fast forward about a year later, we're coming into 2020.
Mhm.
January 3rd, I get back from England. I go to England every Christmas. And so I get back from England the 3rd. On the 4th, a client calls in and speaks to one of my rep and is like, I know you guys have a lot of different clients in different industries. Do you guys have anybody in the medical supply space? I need 20 million masks. I had a deal fall through, and so my rep calls me and tells me this. She's like, I don't know what he's talking about. He wants a bunch of masks. I'm like, let me talk to him. So I get talking to him. He's telling me about these masks, and I'm thinking Halloween masks,
And
right?
this,
At
this
the
guy was a
time,
customer before,
this
or
was a customer of ours
okay.
that we got funding for. Um, and so he starts talking about COVID and coronavirus. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Right? This
Mm.
is the very beginning of 2020, right? This is the very beginning of 2020. Where, nobody really knew what COVID was. Nobody really heard of it at that time, at least not a lot of people. And he gets to telling me, he's like, I was supposed to buy 20 million masks from this guy, KN95s or 90 N95s. And I didn't know what that was either, right? Like nobody really did unless you were in the medical place.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, that sounds like a lot of money, right? And so this guy ended up robbing him for like 10 grand down payment and never produced these masks or got the deal done. So I started reaching out to our clients in the medical field. personal contacts that I had, posting on Facebook, and we got that deal done within 2 weeks. I
Wow.
made 150 grand off
Hmm.
that deal. I probably could have made a lot more, now that I think about it. But hell, it was 150 grand in one pop. I was happy. And I realized at that point, especially after I did more research on COVID and coronavirus, I'm like, man, this could be bad. They're talking about businesses shutting down. If that happens, lending's going to stop.
Yeah.
So I spent the next few days learning everything I could about medical supplies,
Wow.
finding different suppliers for hand sanitizer, gloves, masks. Found some companies that were already creating the tests for them. And that's when Versa Medical Supplies came about.
Hmm.
So I created another company just in case what they said was going to happen happened. Businesses shut down. That way I wouldn't lose everything, because I knew if lending was shut down, I wouldn't be able to go months without any revenue. Like
Yeah.
we wouldn't be able to survive. My reps would quit. I'd lose everything. Everything I'd built over the last 3 years would have poof gone. So I created the medical supply company. I brought a friend on to help me run the lending part until things shut down. And when things did shut down, we were able to move all the sales reps over to selling medical supplies.
Did you
We were
tell the
able to.
sales reps this was coming, or did you kind of?
So yeah, I did. I let them know. I said, look, like, I don't know if you guys have heard, but this thing, coronavirus, kind of scary. It's going to be a pandemic. Like, things could get pretty bad, but don't worry. I'm creating a medical supply company. We've already got a bunch of clients and suppliers. You guys will still be able to make money. Your jobs are secure.
Okay.
Um, and so they were pumped about it. Even when they were selling lending towards the start of states starting to shut down, they were selling medical supplies to those people, right? Some states businesses were open, but they had to have masks and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we started selling supplies to our clients, and then we start selling to hospitals. We start donating masks to different local doctors' offices and things like that. I mean, we were able to help millions of people all around the world. We tried to get the deal done with Italy. Italy got screwed by a company I can't name that got in the way of us closing that deal. While we're watching on TV, the Italians are taking dump trucks around neighborhoods, dumping bodies into them because people are dying. And this one country is so damn greedy. They wanted a bigger piece of the deal that would make it would have cost us money, right? We couldn't do that. So the supplies getting to Italy were delayed by probably a month because of this one country, and a lot of people died. And when that happened, we really started focusing more on trying to donate as much as we can. So we'd close a big deal and we'd take 25% of the profits and donate wherever we could. We did deals with the state of New York, the state of Delaware, Florida. We tried to do a deal with the state of Maryland. The governor's a moron, is what it is. But we helped a lot of people. It was great. We made great money, yes, but we helped a ton of people, man. Like, the supplies were in such high demand, and there were so many scam artists out there scamming people, claiming to have these products or having fake products or whatever. Thank God they all kind of got dealt with. It seems like a lot of people went to jail because of it. Thank God, which they should have, man. People were dying, and there was these people out there scamming people. It was a really messed up industry. It got to a point where the industry was so oversaturated. We kind of slowed down a bit. We just dealt with our repeat customers, certain hospitals and businesses that had a need for a lot of supplies. And then eventually businesses started opening back up all around the country. A lot of brokers, most brokers, lending brokers, closed down, and they didn't survive. We were one of the very few that made it through. So when we opened back up, we got a lot of business. We started doing PPP and helping people get EIDL as well. We didn't charge any fees for that. We did it as, hey, we want to help you. And we created a ton of customers for life because of that, right? We weren't charging fees to do their PPP or EIDL. Um, the company that we used to do it, I think they charged some fees, but everybody had to pay that anyway. But we didn't charge any fees on top of that, and we just wanted to help as many people as we could. And because of that, we did a lot of business in 2020. It was our best year ever, not just because of the medical supplies, but because when lending opened back up, we had customers for life. When those customers would refer everybody they knew, business owners know business owners, right? Um, so we got wrapped up in lending again because we're the best at it. I mean, we have the best closing ratio in the industry by 5 times the average, the highest repeat business ratio in the industry by 3 times the industry average. And then in 2022, we decided to roll out credit card processing. Um, and we've been just going full force with that since. We do ERC for people. So we help people get the ERC funding. That's kind of the last of the pandemic funds. It's money that doesn't have to be paid back. Just yesterday, we got a hospital $8 million. We got another a grocery store $5 million. Money they don't have to pay back. So we're still helping people in the funding side of things. We're helping eliminate businesses' credit card processing fees. A business that does $100,000 a month, they're paying about $3,000 in fees every month.
Yeah.
We're able to do that. We're able to eliminate that by setting the equipment up to charge the consumer the fees instead of the business.
Yeah.
We as a consumer, we don't care if we get charged 20 cents to use our card, but that business that does 1,000 transactions a week, that adds up to a lot of money for them.
Exactly.
So our biggest thing is just helping, man. Like our main focus is if we help somebody, we know we're gonna make money, right? So when we go into a deal, we talk to a customer. The first thing on our mind is how do we help them, right? We don't worry about how much commission we're gonna make, how much money we're gonna make. We know we're gonna make money, but let's figure out how we help this customer, how we're gonna put them in the best situation. Because one, we'll have a customer for life. And two, we're going to have nothing but good reviews. We've never had a single bad review. We've
Oh,
had thousands and thousands of clients over the last 5.5 years, and not one business owner that we've done business with has had a bad thing to say about us, which is unheard of in the business to business industry,
yeah.
period. Like, you just don't find that. We believe in honesty, integrity, doing the right thing, helping people. One thing my parents always told me when I was a kid, like, if you do right, good things will happen. And it's kind of how I run my business. I do right by my employees, we do right by our clients, and good things happen, and it just keeps happening. Right now we're scaling. The first 6 weeks of this year, we did $8 million.
Mm.
It's unbelievable, man. But a lot of business owners could really learn from that, man. Stop focusing so much on the money.
Yeah.
Focus on helping your client. Focus on helping your client. The money will come. You'll get referrals. You'll get good business. I mean, you don't need to focus on the money. The money's a byproduct of good business.
Yeah. No, for sure.
You
I
know?
mean, it's a side effect, it's
Yeah, exactly.
something that's gonna naturally happen as long as you
Exactly.
come through. That's good. That's
Exactly.
good. I mean, if I feel like you've always been in the sales environment somewhere
Yeah.
or the other. And
Yeah. Pretty much.
you always been pretty much on full commission, sometimes as an agent, sometimes as a sales rep, and sometimes as a business owner. So did there's a relationship within will and skill, right? So do you feel your skill came before your will, or
No.
were you just naturally a business owner?
Not at all, man. My will and my need to succeed and my need to prove my parents wrong, right? um, that trumped everything, like, so medical supplies. I didn't know anything about medical
Mm.
supplies. I grew that into a great business. Lending. I had never sold a single loan, and I created one of the best lending brokering companies to ever exist, right? Like, will and the need to succeed, man, is by far trumped my skill. if you have the will, you can learn, right? You can learn anything. You can
Yeah.
learn anything, but you can't learn the will and that need to succeed. You either have it or you don't.
So you didn't know anything about medical, lending, or card processing,
I
but
knew about card processing, like, you know,
okay.
I'd sold credit card processing as a sales rep for
But you
many
didn't know
years.
anything about medical or lending. Those are the two things.
No, no,
In
I knew
average,
absolutely nothing. Yeah, I mean that was how we started the business,
uh-huh,
how we grew the business, how we created a reputation to be able to get to the credit card processing side of things. I had to learn those things, but if I didn't have the will, like I would have never even took the time to learn them. I would have just given up, you know.
exactly. And then in the 5 years, how much money have you made in the medical and in the lending?
So in medical, we ended up taking home a little over $1 million.
Okay.
After, I mean, we probably donated about $1 million worth of supplies.
Gotcha.
So we still ended up walking away with about $1 million. In lending, we've made about 1 to 1.5 million the first 4 years. So probably about 6, 7 million bucks.
Okay.
Um, and then, you know, credit card processing, we really just started hammering it, you know, this year, and we're already at 8 million in well, 9 million now in the first 2 months. So, you know, we're moving up from here.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's amazing how the will can get you to be
A
skillful.
hundred percent.
You know,
Oh, a
like
hundred percent. I mean, if you have the will, you can learn. Like with the internet, you can learn anything
yeah,
online. Literally anything. If you have the will and the drive, you can learn. I mean, whatever it is you want to do, you can figure out how to do it. You can learn how to do it, and you can make it happen. But I feel like will and drive is not something that can be taught. You either have it or you don't.
no, for sure. I mean, and I think it's a lot of curiosity too, because you also gotta
Yeah,
see, like, okay, like if you would have not run into this person that was doing the card processing thing, and
yeah,
you were not curious enough to ask questions about it,
a
you
hundred
would have,
percent.
you would have never gotten your
Same with the medical supplies, right? Like I probably wouldn't have found out about COVID until February, March, like everybody else, and by then, you know, it would have been almost too late to really figure out the medical supply business. You know,
that
I mean,
correlates.
I probably could have still made it work, but most of the money we made was between January and March before you know things got really bad.
That correlates to what you were saying too. You were saying about asking questions to the customer and being curious enough to actually
Yeah,
be able to help them. But at the same
yeah,
time,
hundred
you end
percent.
up being that person yourself. So since you ask questions, you're able to pretty much just bump into business ideas that can make you money.
Yep, exactly.
That's good. That's good. So that's the good side. I mean, obviously, entrepreneurship is not easy, right? We go through many hurdles. So what do you think has been your biggest struggle in business? And how did you come out on top?
Dude, so honestly, I would say my biggest downfall, my biggest struggle is not firing soon enough.
Oh.
Um,
I
I
think everybody
believe,
struggles with
yeah,
that.
I believe in people, man. Like, if somebody shows me they can do it, and I know they can do it, and then they kind of slow down, they stop following the process, they stop doing the work, you know, they're late, you know, I'm like, but I know you can do it. Here, just do this, do this, do this. Let's get back to it. You know, they're on 100% commission too. So it's like, well, if you're not doing it, you're not making any money. Like,
Yeah.
of course they're gonna do what I'm telling them to do. And you know, I hold on to people too long, you know, hoping they're gonna get back to, you know, selling the way they did in the beginning or figure it out, or you know, and yeah, I just I'm a people pleaser, man, and like you know, I'm really bad at that. I've lost a lot of money,
Mm,
you know, holding on to the wrong people.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I think every business goes through the same thing, right? You
Yeah,
believe in you believe in what people say, and like they still tell you they want to be great, but then you look at their actions and it's red flag, but you decided just to trust some people, right?
right,
That plays a big part because at the same time you want to help people, like you help your
exactly.
customers. but
Exactly.
sometimes that's not reciprocal. So you gotta be just a master at like, okay,
Yeah, exactly. Like so this like my sales reps that do well make a ton of money. Um, over a 4-year period, they can make upwards of $10 million. So, they'll say anything to keep the job, even though they might be in a funk or not doing well or not making enough calls or not showing up or whatever. Like, they'll say anything, and I'm like, it's tough for me to be like, you know what? No, like I gotta move on. But I've gotten a lot better at it. I remind myself that this is I have certain goals and I can't let people stand in the way of that. You know,
yeah,
um, I invest about $20,000 a month into each of my sales reps in marketing, systems, Cardone University. I'm investing a lot of money into them, and if they don't have the respect to follow the process, do the work, show up, I shouldn't feel bad cutting ties with those people. Like I look at my sales reps like my family. I spend the most time with them. I talk to them the most. Like we're a family. So it is tough at times, but yeah, I just got to keep reminding myself that it's not personal. It's I can't lose 20 grand every month on somebody just because I like them and they're part of the family.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they're in the business to make money and to make the business
Yeah,
better, not, then
yeah,
we can still be friends, but you just
yeah. Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
And if you were to start all over again, Shaheen, how will you do it? No contacts, you got no business idea, you're 21 years old, and you just know you want to do great things. What will you do?
Man, honestly, I would do exactly what I did, but earlier.
Mm,
Yeah. I wouldn't change a thing, man. Like everything, like every hurdle, every screw up, every downturn, all taught me something that has gotten us to where we are today.
yeah,
Um, I would have just done it sooner, man. I wouldn't have wasted my time spending years traveling back and forth. I would have done it at 21 years old after I'd, cold called uh, 50 states for a year and a half. I would have came back and I would have figured it out. We'd probably be a multi-billion-dollar company today if had I done it 5, 6 years earlier.
yeah. I mean, you got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But that's good. I mean, if you could have done it earlier, but at the same time, you kind of sacrifice like the things that you learned on the way, right? Because,
Yeah.
but it's always a sticky question what we have done differently because
Yeah,
fall in love with the things that didn't go right too. Because then you're
exactly. Yeah. I mean, we learn from those things, like I don't, I think everything happens for a reason, everything. So yeah, I mean, without those learning curves, I don't think, you get to the same place. You end up somewhere else.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, but if you don't know where you're going, you end up somewhere you just don't want to.
Exactly.
That's good.
Exactly. Yep.
What's your best year, man? What's the biggest screw you have ever built? What's the biggest sell of your life?
So it's kind of a sad subject. So, right before COVID, I had closed the biggest deal of my life. It was an oil refinery deal. These guys were opening 10 micro oil refineries.
Mhm,
I was going to take home $240 million.
mhm.
COVID hit. I'm sure, as you know, when COVID hit, oil started trading in the negative.
Yeah, so big time.
That deal died. I was hoping to bring it back. It took me 2 years to find the lender to do this deal. By the time oil started trading at an okay rate, the lender had already used the $2 billion for another venture. So that could have been my biggest deal. It was not. The biggest deal I've ever closed. We did a medical supply deal. We got 580K in one shot. Um, that's been my biggest one so far. We have another one that we're almost done with. That'll pay about 1.5 million up front plus another 2 million a year in equity.
Huh. What's the deal?
Um,
Medical, credit card process?
no, that's yeah. Well, so it's somewhat medical. It's a plasma company.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Next,
Yeah.
the next health. That's good. That's good. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for hopping on, man. I mean, I know you're getting married in this couple of
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
How's
So
that going?
yeah, it's going. We're still trying to find a venue, so we're probably gonna figure that out here in the next couple of months. We're probably gonna push it back to like next February just to give people time to, book the trip. And we're gonna do a destination, so somewhere on an island or on the beach somewhere.
That's good. Yeah, you're a beach guy.
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah, man, it's always been a dream of both of ours to go on vacation with all of our friends and family. And this is the only way we're gonna be able to do that. So,
Yeah. Is your brother coming?
oh yeah, everybody's gonna be there. Friends, family, brothers, uncles, cousins. Yeah, it'd
So
probably be a 200 person wedding.
that's good. Now that your parents, siblings, and your family see what you have done after all the years of like pretty much just trying things, what is the narrative like now?
So it's different, man. Like I don't remember the last time my parents were worried about me financially or they were concerned of what we were doing. I mean, obviously during COVID, we had major success, but they
Mhm.
were worried. They're like, well, is lending going to get back up? Are you going to be able to open back? Business, medical supplies isn't going to last. And but I would say over the last 6 months, I mean, they see how hard I work, how hard I grind and what we've been able to do. They see the house on the water, the nice cars. We're doing fine, and they see the drive, they see the reviews and the testimonials from our customers. I was actually with my family this past weekend, and my brother mentioned it. He's like, "Man, I saw that testimonial from that customer. It looks like you're really helping people." And so it's good, man. It's nice to have my family support and them cheering me on. I mean, my fiance is my biggest supporter. On those days where I just want to give up and call it a day, she's there to keep me going, and you got to have that support system, man.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, because ever since you wanted to like do something, you always had like somebody telling you like, hey, and sometimes we give in, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, let me go back to the construction site. Let me see if I can
yeah.
get a
Let
job.
me do something a little easier, a little
Uh,
bit more stable. It's
yeah.
like, come on.
But the biggest thing that I get from all this and like the story of your life is that people are gonna support you, but you gotta give them something to support you in.
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%, man. You gotta show them. You gotta show. Proofs in the pudding, man. Like
exactly.
I can't count the amount of people that used to talk crap on me. There was a whole Facebook group created that was all about talking crap about me when I first started Versa Business Systems. He'll
Oh,
never make it. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, yeah, and all those people now. That you have you heard that saying? Um, people will people that hated on you will eventually tell other people how they met you or something like that. You know
the
what I
huge
mean? And that's
scenario.
how it yeah, yeah. That's that's how it is now. And it's just funny. But yeah, until you actually do something, like it's all talk. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like but I've always been very vocal about my goals and my plans, and people just think it's all talk until you actually prove it and you show what you can see it.
I think we got that in common. A
Yeah,
lot. I think
yeah,
100% of it. But
yeah,
that's the life we pick, right? Like
yeah,
just proving it to ourselves first that we're
yeah,
capable of doing things and then showing others. And I think the whole narrative that we got going in social media and all this stuff is that hey, the other person on like watching this, you can actually do that too. you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, unfortunately on social media, there's a lot of people that would rather portray a certain lifestyle than actually live it.
Yeah,
And so I think that's where a lot of that comes from is like, are they real or are they fake? Are they, it kind of bugs me because literally, like, dude, if I can do it, anybody can do it, man. Like, for real. Like, it doesn't have to be credit card processing or lending. It could be, whatever you enjoy or whatever you're good at. I've always loved business, right? I've always enjoyed business. When I was a kid, they have you write in school what you want to be when you grow up. It wasn't the president. It wasn't a firefighter. It was a businessman.
yeah.
That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a businessman. And, yeah, I mean, you don't have to fake it till you make it. You just got to go get it. Go get it. You can have this life. You can have better, you just got to go after it.
I think if you first got to pick the person you want to become and then live like that person would. Like,
100%.
I remember when I first started my sales career, I wanted to be like the best sales rep that there was in the company back then. And then I became that person. But at first, I was not that person. But I picked
Right.
this profile. I was like, okay, this person wakes up this time, has this routine and all this. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do exactly the same thing, and I'm gonna psych
Yes.
myself into becoming this person. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, two months in, I'm in the top, and I'm that person. So
Right.
it's like practicing that every single time, right? But that comes with a little bit of winning too, because if you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
if you say something and you don't come through, you're kind of like lying to yourself. So
100%.
you kind of like what Grant says, commit now and figure the rest later. It's
Yep.
like I think people need to ask themselves, like, okay, what do I actually want instead of like
Exactly.
others, which we call kind of fall with that with our guys, with our
Yep.
boys and stuff. But it's like, who do I really want to become? Who do I want to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now? I want to make that person proud, you know.
Right.
That's good.
Exactly.
I've enjoyed my time with you. We'll
Me
be in
too, man.
contact. We'll be in contact because I need to set up something with the credit card company. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's funny. Look, ever since I got back from the trip and we talked about the credit card processor, I've had 7 customers ask me if I take credit cards.
Yep.
None of my customers will ask me before.
Yeah. That's just
I
how it
met
goes
you.
sometimes, man.
I met you. Maybe now I notice it, but I met you,
Right.
and now everybody's asking me for that.
Right. It's probably always been that way. You're just noticing it more now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll hit you up. We'll talk about it. I know I need a POS system. You need to ship me
Dude,
something.
you don't even need that. We can set you up with something simple that you can access from a computer, a phone, or a tablet. Like
Okay.
your type of business, you don't need a point of sale. You're not a restaurant. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we could just set you up with simple. You can give your employees logins where they can use it to just run transactions. They don't have to be able to see your transactions or your reports or anything. You can just give them a simple login where they can run a card at any point in time. It's very simple.
Cool. Absolutely. And then
Yep.
the processing fee is paid by the customer pretty much at the point of sale, right?
Exactly. Yep. So the customer pay, if their total charge is $100, it charges them the $4 fee. You get your $400.
Okay. Cool.
Yep.
Well, that's good, man. Let me call you in about 10 minutes. I have another meeting going on, but that's good. Good to see you. And let's keep
Awesome. You too,
playing
man.
this game, man.
All right. Sounds good, brother.
See you then. Bye bye.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.